Lieutenant Mara Keene adjusted the straps on her combat vest as she stepped onto the uneven surface of the asteroid. The ground crunched beneath her boots, a mixture of dust, metal fragments, and frozen ice. She squinted against the glare of a distant star, her breath visible in the thin, recycled air of her helmet. The outpost behind her was silent, abandoned except for the hum of distant machines and the occasional flicker of lights along the decaying corridors. It had been months since the last crew rotation, and the isolation pressed on her like a weight she could not shake. Mara's mission was simple, or at least it had been. Investigate a strange energy signal that had spiked in the sector's scanners, determine its source, and report back. But simplicity was never a guarantee in space, especially not when humans poked at things that had been left alone for millennia. Her communicator crackled once, a static-laced reminder that she was not entirely alone. Lieutenant Keene, the voice of Captain Halverson came through, clipped and anxious. Any progress on that spike? Mara tapped her wrist device and checked the readings again. The energy fluctuations were unlike anything she had ever seen, pulsing, chaotic yet deliberate, as if the asteroid itself were breathing. "Still analyzing, sir," she said. "It doesn't match any known patterns. It's active." She hesitated, feeling the weight of a growing unease. "And it's strong. Stronger than anything our sensors should have picked up this far. Out. Be careful," Halverson warned. "We don't know what you're dealing with. The last thing we need is another containment breach like Sector 9. The reference made Mara shiver. Sector 9 had been a disaster, a cautionary tale in human space exploration. Creatures unleashed, worlds lost. She promised herself it wouldn't happen again on her watch. Mara's hand hovered over the control panel embedded in the rock face. The asteroid had been a mining outpost centuries ago, long since abandoned and claimed by dust and silence. Yet, the energy spike came from the heart of the main chamber, a sealed vault whose purpose had been forgotten by time. The panel before her glowed faintly, almost inviting her to interact. She frowned. "I don't think the original crew wanted anyone here," she murmured. With a deep breath, she activated the interface. The screen flickered and hummed, responding to her touch with almost imperceptible pulses. Lines of alien script appeared, twisting across the display, incomprehensible yet strangely hypnotic. Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. Something ancient and powerful lay dormant behind these walls. She told herself it was probably just a security system. Nothing alive could survive this long, she reasoned. Her fingers danced over the controls, following the schematic of the vault. The containment field protecting its core seemed fragile, a relic of forgotten technology. With a cautious press of a command, she began the deactivation sequence. Lights blinked, energy readouts spiked, and the hum of the asteroid changed. The air seemed to grow heavier, thicker, charged with anticipation. Mara's breath caught. Something stirred deep within the vault. She froze. A shadow moved in the corner of the chamber, a flicker of darkness that didn't belong. Mara's heart pounded as she adjusted her visor, scanning for movement. The scanners remained calm, indicating no life forms present. Yet she could feel eyes on her, the weight of something ancient, intelligent, and watching. Her fingers trembled slightly as she completed the deactivation sequence. A final beep echoed through the chamber. Silence followed. Then, a pulse of light erupted from the vault, washing the walls in crimson brilliance. Mara stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. The energy wasn't just a reading anymore. It was alive, crawling across the surfaces, illuminating shapes and forms that defied logic. A sound echoed through the chamber, a low melodic hum, like a voice from the depths of the cosmos. Mara's communicator fell silent. For the first time, she realized she had done more than unlock a door. She had released something that should have remained sealed. The figure emerged from the vault like liquid shadow. It moved with a grace that was terrifying and elegant all at once. Mara's breath caught in her throat. The creature's eyes glowed with an intensity that seemed to pierce the very air, intelligent and calculating. Wings folded behind it, sleek and powerful, giving it a regal, almost queenly presence. Mara had no name for what she saw. Nothing in human history prepared her for this. Instinctively, she raised her pulse rifle, though her hands shook. The alien didn't attack. It watched. It studied. A hiss of sound vibrated in her helmet speakers, almost like a whisper carrying both warning and curiosity. Mara felt a strange mixture of fear and awe. This was no mindless predator. This was a being that could think, plan, and dominate entire worlds if it wished. And she had just freed it. Panic surged. Mara's mind raced through possibilities. Containment. Protocols were designed for mechanical threats, not intelligent predators with powers beyond human understanding. She realized she had to retreat, but every instinct screamed that moving might provoke it. She took a cautious step backward, her rifle trained on the creature, and whispered, I didn't mean to." The Queen tilted her head, as if acknowledging the apology. Then, in a movement too fast for the eye, she vanished into the shadows of the asteroid's corridors. The hum remained, echoing in Mara's mind, a reminder that she had awoken something ancient. Mara's hands shook as she keyed her communicator. "Captain Halverson," she said, her voice strained. I think we have a problem." "Explain." The captain's voice was calm but sharp, like a blade cutting through panic. I think I released it," Mara admitted, her words tumbling out. "The vault, the energy spike. It was containment. I deactivated it. It's awake now." She could hear her own heartbeat in the silence that followed. There was a pause, long enough for Mara to imagine the worst. Then Halverson's voice returned, steadier this time. "Stay put. Don't engage. Evacuate if you can. Keep your wits about you, Mara. Whatever you released, it's not just another alien. It's something else. Something formidable." Mara nodded, though he could not see it. She glanced around the empty corridors of the outpost. Her boots echoed on the metal floors, a lonely reminder of her isolation. The Queen was out there, somewhere beyond the walls, and her soldiers, long, dormant, would follow. Mara swallowed her fear and reminded herself she was human. Humans survived, humans adapted. And humans could fight in ways no other species could predict. She began scanning the nearby chambers, marking any anomalies, traps, or structures the Queen might use. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of light a threat. Yet amid the fear, a spark of curiosity burned in her chest. The alien's movements were precise, intelligent, and almost beautiful. Mara couldn't deny it. This was a being worthy of respect, even if it threatened the survival of all human colonies nearby. Hours passed. She mapped corridors, traced energy readings, and logged every unusual event. Every step felt like walking on the edge of a blade. The Queen did not strike, but Mara could feel her presence, an invisible thread connecting her movements to the predator's awareness. She whispered to herself as she worked, almost as a charm against the rising panic. "You won't break me." "I'll survive. We'll survive." Suddenly, her scanner pinged, alerting her to rapid movement near the docking bay. Mara's pulse quickened. The Queen had allies, creatures hidden in the asteroid, waiting, watching. Mara ducked into a side corridor, analyzing her options. There was no way to fight openly. She needed information, strategy, a plan. Humans might be unpredictable, but they were never unprepared. From the shadows, a figure emerged, not the Queen, but one of her lieutenants. Smaller, faster, but no less deadly. Its eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence, and it hissed a challenge in a language Mara did not understand. She raised her rifle, took aim, and remembered everything her training had drilled into her. Patience, precision, adaptability. The first shot rang out, echoing through the metal corridors. The battle had begun, not against a mindless beast, but against intelligence, strategy, and centuries of experience. Mara was alone, but she was human, and humans were never predictable. As she pressed forward, deeper into the asteroid, Mara, realized the truth she could not deny. She had made a mistake, a grave mistake, but the universe had given her a chance. A chance to prove that humanity's courage, wit, and stubbornness could stand against even the most terrifying of cosmic predators. And somewhere, beyond the walls and shadows, the Queen watched, curious about this small, defiant species that had dared to awaken her. The first night in the outpost ended without further attacks, but Mara did not sleep. She stayed at the controls, her eyes scanning the darkness. Somewhere in the asteroid, something waited. And when it moved again, she would be ready. Humans always were. Lieutenant Mara Keene stood at the edge of the asteroid's docking bay, her rifle trained on the shadows that stretched along the metal walls. The first night had been tense but quiet. The Queen had not attacked directly. Yet the hum of energy still lingered, vibrating faintly through the floors and walls like the heartbeat of something enormous and aware. Mara knew this calm was only temporary. Somewhere deep within the asteroid, the Queen's lieutenants were moving, preparing. Her communicator crackled to life. "Lieutenant Keene, status report." Captain Halverson's voice was steady, though Mara could hear the tension beneath. Mara took a deep breath. "Sir, the Queen's lieutenant is active. I've mapped the corridors, and there are signs of movement throughout the asteroid. I believe they are preparing an offensive, but they haven't fully attacked yet." "Understood. Evacuate any nearby human settlements if possible. Contain what you can. Remember, we cannot risk open confrontation until we know their strength." Mara nodded, though he could not see her. She ended the communication and took a deep scan of the docking bay. The metal corridors were narrow, twisted like the veins of the asteroid itself. Each corner could hide a predator, each shadow a trap. She moved cautiously, marking energy fluctuations on her wrist device. The readings pulsed like a heartbeat, strong, rhythmic, and strangely intelligent. Hours passed as she mapped the asteroid. Then, movement appeared, fast, sudden, deliberate. Mara's pulse quickened as three smaller creatures, lieutenants of the Queen, emerged from the shadows. Their bodies were sleek and muscular, eyes glowing with intelligence and hunger. They hissed, not at her, but as if communicating with each other in a language older than humanity. Mara remembered her training: aim for weak points, conserve ammunition, move strategically. She fired a single shot, careful and precise. One creature went down immediately, its body hitting the floor with a metallic thud. The others leapt back, circling her with deadly grace. Mara ducked into a narrow passageway using the walls as cover. She realized she was not just fighting for survival, she was buying time, learning the enemy's movements. Humans were unpredictable, and she could use that to her advantage. From her side scanner, Mara spotted the energy conduit that ran through the asteroid's core. It pulsed in rhythm with the Queen's presence, and she realized the creature's power came from it. Disrupting it might weaken them or at least slow their advance. She quickly formulated a plan: lure the lieutenants into the conduit area and trap them. She moved carefully, her boots silent against the metal floor. The lieutenants followed, confident and calculating, underestimating the human before them. Mara set traps using the limited equipment she had: pulse grenades, netting, and magnetic clamps that could immobilize their metallic bodies temporarily. The first lieutenant charged, claws extended. Mara triggered the magnetic clamps. The creature froze mid-leap, suspended in the air for a brief moment before collapsing to the floor. She fired a pulse grenade, sending the remaining lieutenant retreating into the shadows. Mara exhaled. She had survived the first confrontation, and more importantly, she had learned human ingenuity mattered. The Queen's forces were strong, but they were not infallible. She returned to the central chamber to review her data. The energy readings were higher than ever, almost alive in their intensity. Mara traced the conduits to a massive sealed vault at the heart of the asteroid, the Queen's main chamber. Her breath caught. That was where the source of the power originated, the origin of the creatures themselves. Mara knew that confronting the Queen directly was impossible without a larger force, but gathering intelligence was critical. Humans survived by understanding the unknown before others did. Her wrist device beeped. A communication from the nearest human colony blinked. "Lieutenant Keene, what's the situation?" Mara quickly summarized her findings, careful to emphasize the Queen's intelligence and the coordination of her lieutenants. "Captain," the voice on the other end said, "we underestimated it. Prepare for evacuation and defensive operations. Reinforcements are en route, but they'll take days to arrive. You will need to hold the line." Mara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was alone for now, but humans had always faced impossible odds and survived. She moved through the asteroid, marking every corridor, every chamber, preparing for the inevitable assault. By the second night, Mara saw the Queen for the first time again. She did not attack but watched from the shadows, her glowing eyes following Mara's every move. The Queen's presence was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Mara could sense intelligence and calculation behind her movements. This was not a mindless predator. This was a Queen who understood strategy, patience, and human behavior. Mara's fear mingled with curiosity. She returned to her outpost, scanning the environment for potential traps or weaknesses. She experimented with the alien energy, careful not to trigger anything that could provoke a full assault. Her logs detailed every anomaly, every fluctuation. Humans survived by learning, adapting, and improvising, and Mara intended to use every advantage she could. That night, alarms blared. The Queen's lieutenants had launched a coordinated attack. Mara's heart raced as she moved into defensive positions, laying traps and activating automated turrets. The lieutenants were fast and deadly, but Mara's preparation gave her an edge. She used narrow corridors to funnel them, pulse grenades to slow their attacks, and magnetic clamps to immobilize them temporarily. Hours of combat followed. Mara was exhausted, her body pushed to the limit. But she prevailed. She had killed some lieutenants, trapped others, and survived without serious injury. As she reviewed the damage, she realized that human creativity and unpredictability were her greatest weapons. The Queen's forces were powerful, but they followed patterns, and humans could break those patterns. After the battle, Mara examined one of the captured lieutenants. Its eyes glowed dimly as it observed her. Though it did not speak, she could sense its intelligence. Mara considered what she had learned. These creatures were organized, disciplined, and connected to the Queen's will. But they were not infallible. Humans could adapt faster, think differently, and exploit weaknesses. Her communicator crackled again. "Lieutenant Keene, status update?" Captain Halverson asked. Mara summarized the assault and her observations. "Sir, they are highly intelligent and coordinated. The Queen herself has not engaged directly yet, but her lieutenants are testing our defenses. We need reinforcements and a strategy to deal with the Queen before she decides to strike full force." Halvorson's voice was calm but firm. "Understood. Continue your reconnaissance and hold your position. You are humanity's first line of defense. Remember, humans are unpredictable. Use that to your advantage." Mara ended the communication and looked out at the shadows stretching across the asteroid. Somewhere in the darkness, the Queen watched, calculating, learning. Mara knew the battles ahead would be more dangerous, but she also knew humanity had a unique strength, the ability to think, adapt, and survive against impossible odds. She spent the night preparing. Every corridor was scanned, every chamber mapped. Pulse grenades were placed strategically, magnetic clamps ready, turrets armed. Mara even experimented with the alien energy she had observed, careful to avoid provoking the Queen but curious to see its effects. Humans survived because they adapted, and Mara intended to use every advantage she could. At dawn, Mara spotted movement in the distance, a squad of reinforcements from nearby colonies. Relief washed over her, but she remained vigilant. The Queen's presence was still felt, her energy pulse strong and constant. Mara greeted the newcomers and briefed them on what she had observed. The reinforcements were well trained, but they were not ready for what waited in the shadows. The Queen made her first direct contact soon after. She appeared on one of the external platforms, wings spread, glowing eyes locked on Mara and the new arrivals. She did not attack immediately but hovered, observing. Her intelligence and patience were evident. Mara realized that direct confrontation would be deadly, but there was a way to turn the Queen's own rules against her. Over the next several days, Mara coordinated defenses, experimented with traps, and studied the Queen's behavior. Every encounter revealed more about her intelligence, her code, and her strength. Humans were learning, and so was the Queen. Each move they made, each strategy employed was noted and analyzed by a predator that had dominated countless worlds. Yet Mara saw a pattern. The Queen respected ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability. One evening, Mara and her team discovered a partially collapsed tunnel, leading to what appeared to be a secondary chamber of the Queen's lair. Inside, ancient symbols glowed faintly on the walls, pulsing with the same energy they had seen before. Mara's curiosity drove her forward. The symbols were alien, but their rhythm and structure suggested a language of order, perhaps even a set of rules or a code that bound the Queen's forces. This could be a key, Mara whispered to herself. A way to predict her behavior, maybe even control the battlefield. The next attack was imminent. Mara positioned her team at strategic points using the knowledge she had gathered from observing the Queen and her lieutenants. When the asteroid hummed with energy, a silent reminder of the Queen's presence. Lieutenant Mara Keene moved carefully through the narrow corridors, her team close behind. The skirmishes over the past days had taught them one thing. The Queen's forces were relentless, intelligent, and adaptive. Every encounter, every trap, and every strategy had been met with swift counteraction. Yet Mara felt a growing confidence. Humans had a quality no other species had, the ability to improvise, to think in ways the Queen could not anticipate. "Lieutenant," Sergeant Rami Voss whispered, his voice echoing lightly through the helmet speakers. "I've scanned the energy conduits. The Queen is strengthening them. Whatever she's doing, she's preparing for something big." Mara frowned at the readings. The conduits pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, like a heartbeat synchronized across the asteroid. "We can't wait for her to strike first," Mara said. "We need to take the fight to her, even if it's just to slow her down." Her plan was bold, risky, but it relied on what humans did best, unpredictability. Instead of waiting behind defenses, they would launch a counterstrike against one of the Queen's supply and communication hubs deep within the asteroid. If successful, they could disrupt her forces long enough to gain valuable intelligence. The team prepared carefully. Mara reviewed schematics of the asteroid and marked likely patrol paths. Pulse grenades, magnetic clamps, and energy disruptors were packed and checked twice. They moved silently through twisting corridors, careful not to trigger any sensors the Queen's lieutenants might be using. Every shadow could hide danger, every corner a potential trap. As they approached the hub, Mara's heart raced. The doors to the chamber were massive, reinforced with alien metal that hummed faintly with energy. Mara knelt by the control panel, studying the alien interface. Her hands hovered over the controls, remembering the first time she had activated a similar device. This time she would not make the same mistake. "Ready," Mara whispered. With careful precision, she manipulated the controls, initiating a scan to find the weak points in the chamber's defenses. Lights flickered across the walls as energy conduits pulsed, responding to her touch. She identified 2 potential entry points, one heavily guarded, one lightly monitored but requiring a risky climb through the ventilation shafts. Ventilation, Mara decided. We take the unconventional path. It's dangerous, but it's our best chance for surprise. The team moved quickly, squeezing into the narrow shafts. The air was stale, the walls slick with condensation, but Mara kept her focus sharp. Every sound, every vibration in the metal could indicate the approach of the Queen's lieutenants. They moved in silence, the only noise their quiet breathing and the occasional click of a boot against metal. They emerged in the hub chamber with seconds to spare before a patrol arrived. Mara signaled her team to hold positions and activate the traps she had prepared. Pulse grenades were set along likely approach paths, magnetic clamps rigged to swing doors, and energy disruptors carefully positioned near the conduits. As the first patrol lieutenant entered, Mara held her breath. The traps activated perfectly. Pulse grenades flashed, knocking the creatures back while magnetic clamps immobilized another. The energy disruptors began sending short pulses through the conduits, causing temporary confusion among the Queen's forces. Mara's team moved with precision, hitting every target they could while avoiding unnecessary conflict. Hours passed, as they dismantled communication arrays and sabotaged supply lines. The hub's energy levels fluctuated wildly, and Mara could feel the Queen's awareness through the pulsing conduits. She was not angry, at least, not yet. She was observing, calculating, learning. "Lieutenant," Sergeant Voss said, "the disruptors are working. Their coordination is faltering. We're gaining the advantage." Mara nodded. "Keep it tight. Finish the mission, then withdraw before they recover." Just as they completed the sabotage, alarms blared through the chamber. The Queen's presence manifested near the central conduits, her glowing eyes fixing on Mara. She did not attack immediately. Instead, she studied the humans, her posture regal, her wings unfurled slightly. Mara realized something extraordinary. The Queen respected courage, precision, and strategy. This was not just fear, it was assessment. Mara stepped forward cautiously, keeping her rifle raised but aiming low. "We're not here to fight you if we can avoid it," she said quietly, though she doubted the Queen understood her words. The creature tilted her head, as if considering the statement. The lieutenants that had not been trapped backed away, slightly hesitant. "Prepare for extraction," Mara whispered to her team. "We've done what we can here." The withdrawal was tense. Every corridor seemed alive with potential threats. The Queen's lieutenants reassembled, moving in coordinated patterns, but Mara had anticipated them. Her team used narrow passages and traps to delay pursuit, emerging finally into the open docking area. Their shuttle awaited, engines humming, softly, ready for takeoff. As they lifted off, Mara glanced back. The Queen remained, watching, silent, calculating. She had not pursued them directly, but the intelligence in her gaze was unmistakable. Mara realized something profound. Humans had survived not because of brute force, but because of cleverness, adaptability, and the courage to act against overwhelming odds. The shuttle jumped into hyperspace, carrying Mara and her team toward the nearest human colonies. Reports would go out, reinforcements would mobilize, and strategies would be formulated. Yet Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Queen's forces would regroup, adapt, and return. Humanity's survival depended not just on courage, but on continuous learning, improvisation, and unity. Over the next several days, Mara coordinated with other human settlements. Scouts were sent to monitor the Queen's movements, traps, and defenses were reinforced, and engineers experimented with captured alien technology. Mara observed patterns in the Queen's behavior, noting how she responded to unpredictability and unconventional tactics. Humans were learning faster than the Queen expected, and this gave Mara hope. One evening, Mara gathered her team for a briefing. "We've seen how the Queen operates," she began. "She's intelligent, disciplined, and patient, but she underestimates human adaptability. Our advantage is unpredictability. Our advantage is courage and innovation. We've survived her attacks because we think differently, and that will be the key to protecting our colonies." Her team listened intently, their faces reflecting both exhaustion and determination. Mara's words inspired them, reminding them that humans had faced impossible odds before and had always found a way to survive. That night, Mara stayed at the observation deck, watching the stars. Somewhere beyond the darkness, the Queen observed as well, her glowing eyes reflected in the viewport, a silent acknowledgement of the humans' capabilities. Mara realized that survival was no longer the only goal. They needed to prove themselves as a species capable of standing against the most formidable predators in the galaxy. The following days were filled with skirmishes and intelligence gathering. Mara's team became more confident, anticipating the Queen's movements, exploiting weaknesses in her patrols. and using guerrilla tactics to disrupt her forces. Each successful operation strengthened morale and taught valuable lessons. Humans were not merely surviving. They were evolving, adapting, and becoming a challenge even the Queen could not ignore. During a reconnaissance mission, Mara discovered a secondary chamber deep within the asteroid. Ancient symbols pulsed faintly along the walls, synchronized with the Queen's energy. Mara's curiosity was piqued. She realized these symbols could reveal the Queen's code, her limitations, or even a way to predict her next moves. This knowledge could turn the tide of the conflict, giving humanity a strategic advantage. As the team explored the chamber, they documented every detail, careful not to disturb the energy pulses too much. Mara felt a thrill of excitement and fear. The Queen's intelligence and discipline were formidable, but humans had something she could not fully predict: creativity, courage, and the ability to improvise under pressure. One night, the Queen appeared again near the observation deck. Her wings glimmered in the dim light, eyes fixed on Mara. She did not attack but hovered silently, assessing, calculating, curious about the humans who dared to challenge her. Mara met her gaze steadily. Fear was present, yes, but it was tempered by determination. Humans had faced predators before and they had survived. They would survive again. As dawn broke across the asteroid, Mara reflected on the past weeks. Humans had launched their first successful counterstrike, learned the Queen's patterns, and gathered crucial intelligence. The battle was far from over, but the tide had shifted slightly. Humanity was no longer merely a target. They were opponents, capable of challenging one of the galaxy's most feared predators. Mara knew the days ahead would be filled with danger, strategy, and unexpected challenges. But she also knew that humans had a unique strength: the ability to think differently, adapt quickly, and fight with courage that no creature could anticipate. The Queen's respect, though unspoken, was evident. She had acknowledged humanity as more than prey, and Mara intended to make sure that recognition translated into survival. Humans had fought back. Humans had won small victories, and humans would continue to do so. Somewhere in the asteroid's corridors hummed with tension as Lieutenant Mara Keen and her team prepared for what could be their most dangerous mission yet. Months of observation, skirmishes, and intelligence gathering had led to this point. The Queen's forces were regrouping, her lieutenants growing more disciplined and coordinated, yet Mara had learned enough to plan a bold assault on the Queen's central fortress. The mission was clear: infiltrate the heart of the asteroid, disable the Queen's energy core, and strike a decisive blow that could disrupt her command network. Mara surveyed the team as they checked their equipment one final time. "Sergeant." Voss gave her a firm nod. "We're ready, Lieutenant. We've trained for this. Humans survive by adapting. We adapt. We survive." Mara returned the nod, her jaw tight. "We move carefully, but decisively. The Queen is intelligent. She will predict some of our moves, but she cannot anticipate everything. We use that. We move fast, stay silent, and keep our eyes open." The assault began in the dead of night. Mara's team navigated the twisting corridors, slipping past patrols and using knowledge of the Queen's patterns to avoid direct confrontation. Pulse grenades were set at strategic points, magnetic clamps ready, and energy disruptors were carried carefully to interfere with alien systems. The humans moved like shadows, silent but determined. They reached the inner chamber of the fortress, a massive space pulsing with energy. The walls were lined with conduits and glowing alien symbols. The Queen's presence was overwhelming. Her energy radiated through the room, intense and almost palpable. Mara could feel it pressing against her mind, a reminder that this was no ordinary predator. "Set the disruptors here," Mara instructed, pointing to the main conduits. "We disable her energy core. It will weaken her forces and give us a chance to strike decisively." The team worked swiftly, carefully avoiding traps and sensors. Every step was calculated, every action precise. As the disruptors activated, The energy in the room fluctuated violently. Lights flickered and a low hum vibrated through the chamber. Mara's wrist device beeped, signaling that the Queen's attention had shifted. She was aware, and then she appeared. The Queen emerged from the shadows, wings spread wide, her glowing eyes fixed on Mara. Her presence was both terrifying and majestic. Every movement radiated power and intelligence. Mara's team froze for a moment, caught between fear and awe. The Queen did not attack immediately. Instead, she assessed them, her gaze sharp, calculating and almost respectful. Mara stepped forward cautiously, keeping her pulse rifle lowered. "We don't want unnecessary bloodshed," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline racing through her. "We only want to survive and protect humanity. We can fight or we can find a solution." The Queen tilted her head, considering the statement. She moved closer, hovering silently, radiating power. Mara realized something important. The Queen was not purely malevolent. She respected strength, courage, and strategy. Humans' unpredictability had caught her attention, and now she was observing, learning. Suddenly, one of the Queen's lieutenants appeared from the shadows, attacking a squad member. Mara reacted instantly, firing a pulse grenade to immobilize the creature while simultaneously moving to protect her team. The Queen watched, silent, her eyes reflecting curiosity rather than aggression. Mara realized that direct violence would not be the key to survival here. Strategy, precision, and understanding the Queen's code would matter more. The disruptors began to interfere with the Queen's energy core, causing visible fluctuations in the room's pulsing light. The Queen hissed softly, a sound that reverberated through the chamber. Her lieutenants retreated slightly, uncertain. Mara seized the opportunity. "Push forward," she whispered to her team. "Focus on the disruptors. We can't let them recover." Hours passed as humans worked in synchronization. They navigated traps, disabled energy nodes, and avoided direct confrontation with the Queen. Every action was calculated, every movement strategic. They could feel the Queen studying them, analyzing every choice. Mara realized that their survival depended not just on skill, but on proving themselves worthy of the Queen's respect. Finally, the last disruptor was activated. The energy core fluctuated violently, causing the Queen to hover back momentarily. The humans had achieved their goal, a temporary disruption that weakened her forces and created an opening. Mara signaled her team to prepare for extraction, knowing that retreating now was as important as the assault itself. The withdrawal was tense. The corridors seemed alive with energy, shadows stretching unnaturally. The Queen's lieutenants regrouped, moving in coordinated patterns to intercept the humans. But Mara's team had anticipated this. Pulse grenades and magnetic clamps were used strategically, slowing the pursuit and giving the humans precious seconds. As they reached the shuttle bay, Mara glanced back. The Queen hovered at the central chamber, wings unfurled, eyes glowing with curiosity. She had not pursued them directly, but her intelligence and power were undeniable. Mara realized that humans had survived not by brute strength, but by ingenuity, courage, and precise planning. The shuttle lifted off, engines roaring softly, carrying Mara and her team into space. They had achieved a critical victory, but the battle was far from over. The Queen's respect was evident, but so was her determination. Humanity had proven it could challenge one of the galaxy's most feared predators, yet the Queen remained a looming threat. Over the next several days, Mara coordinated with other human colonies. Engineers experimented with alien technology captured during the mission. Scouts were sent to monitor the Queen's movements. Mara analyzed every pattern, every energy fluctuation, looking for weaknesses and anticipating future attacks. Humanity had learned, adapted, and evolved in response to the Queen's power. One night, Mara stood on the observation deck, staring at the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, the Queen watched as well, her glowing eyes reflecting the humans' determination. Mara understood that survival alone was not enough. Humans needed to prove they were capable of standing against this ancient predator. not just for themselves, but for the galaxy. As dawn broke, Mara gathered her team. We've proven that humans can fight intelligently, adapt quickly, and survive against forces far greater than us, she said. The Queen is powerful, yes, but she has underestimated one thing: the unpredictability and courage of humanity. That will be our strength moving forward. Her team nodded, determination reflected in their faces. Mara smiled faintly. Humans had won small victories, but the war was far from over. They had shown resilience, intelligence, and courage, and the Queen had taken note. The following days were filled with preparation. Mara studied the secondary chambers in the fortress, documenting alien symbols and energy patterns. She trained her team for rapid response, improvisation, and coordinated assaults. Every skirmish, every observation, and every success built confidence. Humans were no longer merely survivors. They were becoming a force the Queen could not ignore. Then came the moment Mara had been preparing for: direct confrontation with the Queen. She knew she could not defeat her in combat alone, but she could negotiate, manipulate, and demonstrate humanity's strength. The Queen approached, wings unfurled, eyes fixed on Mara. This time there was no hesitation, no distraction. She had come to test, to observe, and perhaps to acknowledge humanity's worth. Mara stepped forward, pulse rifle lowered, her voice steady. "We are humans," she said. "We survive, we adapt, and we fight with intelligence and courage. We do not seek unnecessary conflict, but we will not be dominated. You have strength, but so do we." The Queen tilted her head, considering the statement. Her glowing eyes reflected curiosity and calculation. Mara realized that the battle had shifted. This was no longer purely physical. It was a test of intelligence, strategy, and courage. Humans had to prove their worth not through brute force, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and moral determination. Hours passed as the Queen studied the humans. Her lieutenants waited, tense and ready, but she remained focused on Mara. Finally, she moved back slightly, her wings folding elegantly. It was a subtle acknowledgement, a recognition of humans' intelligence and courage. Mara understood the significance. The Queen respected humanity, even as she remained a formidable predator. The mission was a success. Humans had infiltrated the fortress, disrupted the energy core, and survived direct observation by the Queen. They had proven their adaptability, ingenuity, and courage. The Queen's respect, though unspoken, was evident. Mara gathered her team once more. "We've shown that humans can face impossible odds and survive," she said. "The Queen has taken note. That respect gives us a chance to protect our colonies and continue learning. Our survival is not guaranteed, but our courage and intelligence make us formidable." The team nodded, their faces reflecting determination and relief. Humans had taken a critical step in the struggle for survival. They had faced one of the galaxy's deadliest predators and survived, learning valuable lessons in strategy, adaptability, and courage. As Mara looked out at the stars, she knew the Queen would return. She would adapt, her forces would regroup, and new challenges would arise. But humans were ready. They had learned, evolved, and proven their worth. The galaxy would not see humanity as mere prey. The galaxy was quiet, or at least it seemed so. Lieutenant Mara Keen stared out from the observation deck of the human flagship, her eyes tracing distant stars. The assault on the Queen's fortress had revealed just how intelligent, patient, and powerful she was. Yet humans had survived, adapted, and even gained her respect. Now Mara faced the final challenge: securing a fragile peace and ensuring humanity's survival. Reports from scouts came in continuously. The Queen's forces were still strong, but the disruption of her energy core had slowed her operations. Supply lines were fractured, and her lieutenants moved cautiously, aware of human unpredictability. Mara realized this was the window to negotiate, not with words, but through action and demonstration. "We have one chance to show we can coexist, or at least avoid total destruction," Mara said to her team. "We strike precisely, protect our colonies, and demonstrate strength. The Queen respects courage, intelligence, and unpredictability. We give her all three." The plan was daring. Mara would lead a strike team to intercept a squad of the Queen's lieutenants threatening a remote human colony. Instead of engaging in total combat, the humans would disable the alien ship's engines and trap them without unnecessary bloodshed. The goal was simple: show capability, control, and intelligence, and let the Queen observe without needing to intervene directly. The approach was tense. Mara's shuttle glided silently through the void, cloaked from sensors. The squad was ready. Pulse rifles charged, magnetic clamps and pulse grenades packed. As they neared the Queen's squad, Mara signaled to hold positions. "Wait for the opening," she whispered. The Queen's lieutenants moved in predictable patterns, circling the colony's perimeter. Mara counted heartbeats, calculating every move. Then, with precise timing, the humans struck. Pulse grenades and magnetic clamps immobilized the alien ships, while energy disruptors prevented engine restart. The operation was flawless. No human was harmed. No unnecessary violence was committed. Somewhere in the darkness, the Queen watched. Her glowing eyes reflected curiosity. She had predicted some of their actions, yet human unpredictability had given them an advantage. Mara realized the significance. Humans had proven they could think, adapt, and act with intelligence even under pressure. This was the true measure of respect the Queen valued. Returning to the flagship, Mara received a transmission. The Queen herself appeared in a shimmering form near the edge of the system, her eyes meeting Mara's across the void. She did not attack. Instead, her posture was calm, regal, almost acknowledging. Mara felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had survived, gained intelligence, and earned the respect of a predator feared across galaxies. Mara addressed her team. "We've done more than survive. We've shown courage, intelligence, and adaptability. The Queen recognizes us as more than prey. That recognition is fragile, but it is our chance to secure humanity's future." Over the next days, humanity reinforced colonies, repaired defenses, and monitored the Queen's movements. Mara studied her energy patterns and behavior, preparing for future encounters. The Queen remained a formidable presence, but her respect for humans created a balance. She no longer struck recklessly, and her forces were more cautious. Humanity's survival depended on continued intelligence, vigilance, and adaptability. Mara often found herself on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The Queen's eyes seemed to watch her, a silent acknowledgement of humans' unpredictability and courage. Mara knew that the battles were not over. The Queen was ancient, powerful, and patient. Yet humanity had something no other species could offer: the courage to fight, the intelligence to adapt, and the creativity to survive against impossible odds. One evening, Mara reflected on everything they had endured. From the moment she had unknowingly unleashed the Queen, through countless skirmishes and daring strategies, humans had grown stronger. They had learned, adapted, and survived. The galaxy had witnessed something remarkable: a species small in number but mighty in courage and ingenuity. As Mara prepared reports for the colonies, she felt a mixture of relief and resolve. Humans had earned a fragile peace. The Queen would not strike lightly, but her respect offered an opportunity for coexistence, observation, and continued survival. Mara understood that this peace was not permanent, but it was a start. The final report concluded: humans are capable of surviving even the most formidable predators in the galaxy. They are unpredictable, courageous, and intelligent, qualities that no force, no matter how powerful, can entirely anticipate. Humanity had faced the alien vampire queen and emerged alive, stronger, and wiser. From the observation deck, Mara watched the stars twinkle with distant possibilities. Somewhere in the vastness, the Queen moved among her forces, her curiosity intact. Mara smiled faintly, knowing humanity had not just survived. They had earned recognition. And somewhere deep in the stars, both predator and prey prepared for the next chapter, each aware that humans were no longer the weak, easy targets the galaxy once assumed. Lieutenant Mara Keen turned away from the viewport, her resolve firm. Humanity had survived the impossible. Humanity had earned respect. And Humanity's story among the stars was only beginning.